Good morning, Mike Dunnaway, the Flatland Fly Tire here, and we're going to do a remake of a fly. This will be the new and improved version of the roadkill fly. This is the original roadkill, and it's tied. This one is tied with possum fur. In the original video, I talked about the various furs that we tried, and the possum fur I thought was the winner. But the problem is I tried to buy the possum fur commercially, and it wasn't as good as the small piece that I had in my stock. So you really want to have as long of fibers as possible for the tail. So I experimented some more, and I purchased some badger fur, and it had longer fibers than the possum that I had purchased. So I decided to go with the badger. Also, I decided that this original version of the roadkill didn't have enough underbody flash, or any underbody flash, and we wanted to add some of that. So I kind of redid this fly, and I'm going to do a remake of this video and show you the new and improved roadkill fly. A lot of the stuff is still the same. Oh, this is the new and improved roadkill fly with the badger fur for the tail, and for the body flash, I'm using some hollow polar chenille. And this stuff really has great flash in the water, and probably that single material was the trigger for my thought to redo this fly pattern. So let's tie it up for you. Beginning, as we did before, with preparing the hook for the dumbbell eyes. Go in behind the hook about an eye length and a half back behind the eye. Build a small thread bump, and then another one a little bit further down the hook towards the bend. And these two bumps really create the cradle to position our dumbbell eyes. In this case, I'm using some size medium brass dumbbell eyes. And my thread that I'm using is a 140 denier ultra thread. The hook is a B10S Gamakatsu Stinger in a size 1. A little smaller than I use for a lot of redfish flies, but I think it's perfectly suitable for redfish, and I can't wait to try this particular fly on largemouth bass in my neighborhood. Okay, cross white wraps each way on the dumbbell eyes, making sure they stay perpendicular to the hook shank. Once we have those secured, as best we can with the cross wraps, we'll come back under the eyes and over the hook with several tight wraps, and that's going to really cinch those eyes down so they don't rotate. Now, for further security, we'll use a little bit of Zap-A-Gap or super glue. That will help. Okay, back to the bend of the hook. Building a thread base on the way. And now we'll take the badger fur and cut that from the hide. It takes a pretty good clump of this badger fur to form the tail. That is the size of the clump. And it's got some under fur, not a whole lot. We're going to clean that out with a a comb. So we'll merely run the comb through the fur and remove any under fur. This will make a cleaner tie-in point. That's what we pulled out of that particular chunk of badger. You can buy this badger fur or at any fly shop, or occasionally driving down the road, you will see a badger that's been hit by a car, and you can pick up your own very cheaply. Okay, we'll tie that in with about 4 loose wraps. Now press down with your thumbnail and distribute those fibers 360 degrees around the hook. Lash the rest of that down. Now for our flash in the tail, we'll take 4 to 6 strands of crystal flash. And center those around the tying thread and tie down the bundle on one side, then take half that bundle over to the other side and tie that down. And we'll trim off the crystal flash so it's just a little shorter than the tail. There we go. Now for our hollow polar chenille, and this stuff, man, it really has lots of great flash to it. We'll tie that in there, just in front of the tail. We only need about 3 or 4 wraps of this stuff. Sweep those fibers rearward as much as possible. These things are really unruly and they tend to go everywhere, but sweep it around towards the rear of the fly as much as possible. I guess we did 4 wraps of the hollow polar chenille and tie that off. Now sweep those fibers rearward. And wrap back over them to direct them to the rear of the fly. Forms a nice flash collar. We got most of the fibers, there we go. Next, for our legs, we're using some crab crusher legs by Hairline, and these are in a blue and shrimp color. Take off a pair of those legs and fold them in half, making sure that the blue portion is the same on both sets of legs. Okay, I'm going to tie that in with just a little bit of the center loop on top of the fly. A few wraps there to secure them, and then take 2 of those legs on one side of the fly and 2 on the other, and direct them to the side of the fly as you wrap forward, or wrap rearward towards the tail. Okay, and without stretching those legs, pull them up and trim them off so they're about the same length as the crystal flash, a little shorter than the tail. This fly imitates a crab or shrimp, and I think around here in Kansas it's going to do a good job of imitating a crawdad too. So it'll be great, I think, on largemouth bass and on catfish as well. People don't think about catching catfish on a fly rod, but they are good fighters and not that difficult to catch. Now for our brush, we're going to use some olive brown Foxy brush, 1.5 EP Foxy brush. We've got too much of the metal stem sticking out from the end of this brush, so we're going to trim off most of that. Okay, tie that down at the end of the last tie, again at the base of the tail. And come up to in front of the brass dumbbell eyes. Okay, wrap the brush rearward or frontward to the front, and with kind of spiral wraps, not touching wraps. And as you run the brush forward, stroke those fibers rearward. Come up and make one tight wrap behind the eyes, and then cross over the eyes. Again, stroking our fibers to the rear. We'll do one more wrap ahead of the eyes and then tie it off. I've selected the orange, fire orange ultra thread because I wanted to end up with a red head as a hot spot in front of the fly. Okay, cut off our brush and take our thumbnail and push that wire tie-in to the rear. That'll keep from cutting our tying thread. And brush all those fibers to the rear as best you can. You'll lose some up front. You can tie this fly with or without a weed guard, but I kind of like the weed guard on this fly because it should be fished on the bottom. So I'm going to use some 50-pound fluorocarbon for the weed guard. And anytime I'm lashing down a weed guard, I will take some pliers and mash down the fluorocarbon for the last 1/8 of an inch or so, and then bend the fluorocarbon in an L while you've got it in the pliers. That gives us a good place to tie in that fluorocarbon. And by flattening it out, it keeps that fluorocarbon from spinning around the hook. So tie that in. And we can trim off our weed guard so it's just a little longer than the point of the hook. And that will hopefully keep that fly from getting snagged on anything that's on the bottom of the lake or the river or the ocean. Okay, now we can whip finish. We've got some fibers up at the head that escaped us and are interfering with the eye. So we'll trim those out as best we can. They're really not hurting anything, they just look a little unsightly. Now for some head cement. Make sure you get around the weed guard tie-in. And take your bodkin and pull out any trapped fibers of that brush. And then take a brush of some sort or comb and comb those fibers to the rear. And the last step is to do some trimming on the head. You'll notice it looks pretty brushy up there, bushy up there, so we're going to trim that up a little bit. Give it a little sleeker profile around the head. That'll improve the looks of our fly. The fish might not care about it, but I sure do. There. Gives it a much neater appearance. So there we have the updated version of the roadkill fly, and hopefully those slight improvements will make it fish better and catch more redfish, bass, or whatever species we're going after. And tie it up and give it a try.